Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Hey, Connected Life peeps, Justin here. And I'm up in Wyoming at a man camp again. And last year, you guys got to listen to me and Bryant, our friend from the Adventure Challenge. He was up here with me, and he was going to be up here this year, but he did not make it. And so I'm hanging out at this incredible camp. There's a lodge. There's animal heads on the walls. There is a bunch of guys sitting around smoking cigars, drinking whiskey, hanging out with their butts in the river around a fire. It's pretty magical. And I found a really special person that I wanted to bring onto the podcast here, because I just thought his story is one of those stories that leave a lasting impact. They remind us that there's no place where we can be too broken and too far gone, that a good and loving dad can't come scoop us up out of and begin the process of repairing our hearts and restoring our lives. And it's one of those stories that even when it was being shared with me, it was like this place where I was ready to just be brought to tears and start crying, because it's this promise of goodness is woven into the messiness of our humanity. And so I want you all to get a chance to partake in some of the amazingness of my man camp journey here that I'm on. And part of that is the people that I meet with. And a portion of that happens to be a person that I met with. So today we're going to have Mike here. Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going, Mike. I so loved our conversation the other night. It was really special to me to get to hear your story and so much vulnerability inside of your share. Yeah. To tell me how much you like spending time with me now, Mike.
Right. Well, besides all the crying and internal emotional health stuff that has been revealed, I loved it.
Gee whiz. Oh, come on now. You don't have to say that, Mike.
Right. Stop it some more.
Stop it some more. Anyways, dude, I'm really excited to sit here with you today and go into this, like I said. And I just want to kind of jump into this. They got a feeling for kind of the route we're going to go on. Where do you want to start? Where did it all begin, Mike? Who are you? Tell us something about yourself, buddy.
Right. Yeah. So my name is Michael. I'm from San Diego, California. I'm 37. I'm a native to San Diego. California is my home. I love it.
San Diego is a wonderful place. Do you surf?
I do surf.
Yeah.
More actually, I bodyboard. So
you bodyboard?
For all the surfers, they're like, yeah, those dick draggers. Like, that's me.
You're
I'm
a dick dragger.
I'm a speed bump.
You're a speed bump.
But I love it. I'll crush it. But I can surf. So I can surf, but I love bodyboarding.
So that's cool, man.
Yeah.
So any other fun things about you want to share?
I'm a dad.
How many kids?
I have 3 little girls, 8, 7, and 4.
Wow.
And I've been married for 10 years to an amazing woman who just never lowers that bar and just always, holds me to.
She lovingly doesn't put up with your shit?
Yeah. She holds the bar, but gives me grace when I fall below, but doesn't lower that bar.
Yeah.
And so it keeps me on my game where I'm like, all right, we got to do this. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't get away with anything in my marriage either. She's just like, Abby's like, nah, ain't gonna happen. I love you too much to let. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm holding you accountable.
Yep. Yeah. Yes, that is my wife.
I love that, dude.
Yeah.
So obviously you have a wild story, and I just want to kind of jump into the early parts of it and stuff. You want to fill us in?
Yeah, totally. So, for me, growing up in San Diego, I grew up with, my parents were around, and I'm the middle between 2 girls. And, for us growing up, we grew up in a conservative home. My dad loved He was a political science kind of major.
Oh,
So
okay.
we grew up like in the Republican Christian, like not even Christianity, just Republican conservative world. And
Yeah.
like, you know, it was just the very legalistic, very like, hey, you know, this is the standard. If you're not measuring up, like you need to buck up and get in there. And, you know, growing up, they would take us to church, and, you know, my dad loved the morality of Christianity, not so much the relationship of Christianity. And, you know, with a loving father, but it was more that just religious activity.
So it was like we go to church because this is a good moral thing for us to do.
Yep.
And it fits well in our conservatism.
Exactly.
And there's
But
not a lot of connection within it. It's just
we'll get drunk. We'll, you know, live life.
life feels really crazy.
Yeah.
We hit Sunday, put on your Sunday clothes, kids.
Yep.
Put on
We're
a
going to
smile
church.
Maybe.
Yep.
And go to
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
Right.
And for me, you know, for me going to church, you know, it was like, oh, I hear what this person's saying, and, you know, they're telling me that Jesus is always there and he'll never leave you, he'll never forsake you. And but from, you know, for me, from 5 to 11, I was being molested by multiple male individuals. I
Wow.
was, you know, and family members, people in religious organizations, and, you know, there's a lot of just dysfunction. My mom was an alcoholic. My dad was emotionally unavailable, and just, you never knew what you were going to get. And so, you know, I didn't have any place to like even process, you know, any of that.
So what I hear you saying is like, my family was deeply disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
They're dissociated
Correct.
from each other. They're kind of in that survival mode.
Yeah.
Whether that's alcoholism or political stuff. And so we didn't have an intimate connection where there was a sense of nurturing and
Yes.
conversations where there wasn't enough safety to be like, hey, some really painful stuff is happening inside of my life and I need to talk about that. So there was this whole area of your life that was hidden and riddled with probably a lot of shame
Mm-hmm.
and obviously a lot of pain.
Confusion, you know, all of that. And, you know, at 14, I actually started having day terrors and flashbacks. Like I was at school. I remember I was sitting at my desk, and all of a sudden, just all of these events that took place with all of these different guys and stuff like began to
Really?
flash into my head. And I just was like, what the hell is going on? You know, like,
Wow. So did you go like into a full blown like panic attack inside of that, or just like,
yeah, it was just kind of like, it was more shock. Like,
Right.
It was like, I don't know what is happening. And I remember I just internalized it, like, because I didn't, again, there
so did you
wasn't-
not cognitively remember all that stuff? Like you'd been so dissociated from it
Yep.
that you'd blocked a lot of it out.
Yeah.
You're like, never happened, never happened. Oh shit, it did happen.
Yep.
I'm now reconnecting to it and I'm freaking out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't know how to deal with it at 14, you know?
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
correct. You
We don't know
like-
how to deal with it like in our 30s, right?
Right.
Like,
Exactly. You know, like, and so my parents didn't know how to deal with it when I came out to them. And so,
wait, so you actually went and had the conversation and said, hey, this is some stuff that's gone on in my life?
yeah. So we were actually at my aunt and uncle's house, and they were talking about, and, you know, they were just sharing how my cousin had come out saying that he was homosexual. And I was sitting at the table, and I was like, I knew he was gay the whole time. I knew that he was homosexual. I knew, like, this is what he did.
Right. This
And
is what
that
he
was
did.
the
This is what
first-
he did to me.
This is what he did to me. And
wow.
and that was like my first coming out, and it just was like brain, thought, mouth, no filter, just
right. It just came out.
it was like, this is what's up. And it just was like, nobody knew what to do with that.
Oh yeah.
And-
I'm sure they were just like utter shock,
Yeah.
disbelief. And then like, how do we even process this as a family? We don't process anything as
We
it
don't.
is.
Yeah.
And now you've just dropped a nuclear bomb on our entire life.
And now we just sweep it under the rug.
Wow.
And you know, and so at that, I mean, 14 going into high school, you're very impressionable. I was angry, bitter, lonely, confused, just so disconnected from myself, even emotionally charged, where it was like I would try to communicate, even verbally communicate my thoughts, and I couldn't without like crying, or I couldn't without getting anxious and
complete overwhelm, right?
Yeah, over it. It was like emotionally hijacked.
Yeah.
Like little emotional terrorists took over, and
Wow.
I would just, and so then kids would make fun of you, then, and so going in, you look at, because my parents weren't necessarily parenting, I got all of my information on how to do life from movies. And I'm like, oh, well, in the movies, the jocks, they have, all the girls, they have all the friends, they are popular. And so tried out for football, and, I wasn't the best. We had 100 kids on our freshman football team. So I was like, fourth string, like, all right, we're winning, throw them in, or we're losing really bad. It doesn't matter, throw them in. And so, but did that.
Feels disparaging
right,
to the soul.
Right. And then, but where I really, I was, tennis was my game, and that's
really?
where I found, I'd grown up playing tennis, and I was, captain of the varsity tennis team, CIF in high school, and just really good at it, but still I was empty. I was broken. I like that. None of those things filled that void within myself, and so going in, I remember getting invited to a party and seeing.
Which, can I ask a quick question? Did you ever share with any of your friends the experiences that you had? So you're living like the only place that you've expressed this is with the family. Family sweeps it under the rug.
Yep.
You're just like, all right, I got to compartmentalize all of this stuff.
Disassociate from it.
Yeah, completely dissociate from all of it.
Yeah.
And you move forward, and you're just like, I don't know, I got to figure out how to maybe be popular or find some fulfillment because I'm watching it on.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And so you end up attending a party. Is that what you're about to say?
Yeah. So I went to a party, and I saw a bunch of dudes that were just sitting around a table with a bunch of weed. And I was just like, what's that? And they just started smoking weed with them. And then the effects of that was like the euphoria, the high.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that felt good.
Pain's totally alleviated. That's sitting way under the surface.
I was like, I don't even have to deal with it. Like any of my problems, like stuff at home, like I don't internally, like externally, like I don't have to deal with.
This is magical,
right? Like I'm free, and not only that, but like, oh, these dudes, like people respect them. Like even the jocks, even the girls, like they all, like these dudes have authority, they have power, they have money, they have, like, everyone loves them because they're the life of the party, and they're super accepting.
Right.
And I found
that's such a key word.
And I found my acceptance in the brokenness and in my emptiness, where I was longing to be accepted by something or someone. Yeah. But I found it in this group of guys, and I went all in. And
what did all in look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, it started off with smoking weed, and then we started growing weed, and then we started, transporting, going up to like Humboldt County and getting like 300 pounds, like just mass quantities amount of weed.
Wow.
Coming down. And then it was like, well, as I started getting older.
So it was like a young entrepreneurs club.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much, yeah. Just sales.
Sales. I entered into a sales position.
At 15, I was in a sales position, and, and then by, that sophomore, it just kept progressing. I was like, oh, well, there's more money in pills, there's more money in coke, there's more money in, at that point, it was like, okay, we're not getting into, at that point, before coke and heroin and meth, like it was like, I'll never do that stuff. Like that stuff's hardcore.
Yeah. Not gonna touch any of that.
Right. Like we're just gonna stay green. Like we're gonna, but eventually, it just wore off, and eventually it just progressed where it's like, no, I want more. Like I want
that makes sense.
More. The hole is still there, and this isn't filling that hole, so I need more.
Yeah.
And then the adrenaline of deals, the adrenaline of, missions, the adrenaline of, things that took place, and
which had to be crazy. Some of the stuff, like, did it escalate? Like, even the deals, did they start when did they start escalating as far as like the craziness that were taking place in deals? Because you're a teenager at this point. Does this bleed into your 20s? Like, what?
Yeah. So I mean, I would say by 17, we were already transporting drugs from TJ to San Diego. We were, the moment we got our license, it was like, let's go. Like, let's get drugs, let's smuggle them across the border, and, going into all of that. And then, as you start getting into that world with cartels, with, gangs and, bikers and all that kind of stuff, like that lifestyle.
Was that terrifying at times?
There's fear. But again, you're just, it's such a 3-foot world that like, it's your culture. It's your social environment, that it's socially acceptable. Like, I remember driving around with a 3-foot bong in my car, smoking weed, and like,
which is a miracle in itself, to be able to drive and smoke a 3-foot bong,
right? Like, you have it on but like looking at other drivers and being like, why aren't you doing this?
Wow. Because
like, that was
so deeply normalized.
So deeply, like, within our group, within that small little culture, it was so normalized that it was like, everyone else in society is just wacko. Like, they don't get it. They don't get it. Like, and so, and again, going into the drug world, it was like, we would do missions. We would go, when you say do missions, what does do missions so
mean?
Like, going, like, we, in a sense, we prided ourselves in we were the guys that would jack other dealers.
Wow.
And so we would find out, like, okay, here's, rival dealers, all this stuff. And we'd go in with shotguns and guns and, in the middle of the night and full on rob these dudes, like, like putting shotguns in guys' mouths, like, as they're sleeping, like, but the thrill of like causing terror.
Right. Having like a power, dominating someone.
Full on. Like, it was something that was so powerful. You felt big, you felt untouchable, and so
was there a lot of violence that you were witness to inside of that world?
I remember, and I have to kind
filter.
of be careful. But I remember one time, one of my buddies, he calls me up, he's like, hey, I need to go, meet up with someone. I was like, girl, let's go. Like, and whose car we taking, like, kind of thing. And I was like, let's go, and we go to this bar, and he walks in, and he had a brand new white sweater on. And I remember we walk in, and he walks right up to this dude and just straight stabs him. Like, whoa. Like, full on, like, bloodied him up. And we go back, run into the car, go to his house. And literally, as we get to his house, his mom is like, did you take care of it? And
what?
And she's like, give me all your clothes. And she goes in the back and starts burning all of the evidence. Like, it makes us go in the shower and like literally, like, and that was like our world. Like, that was just
that was a Tuesday.
Like, it was just like, that was just what we did.
Like, this happens. This is part of what happens in this space.
And then, and then that's just that side. And then you have friends overdosing, you have like, there's all of that kind of, people getting arrested. And
right. Cause I'm sure you must have potentially lost some friends along the way, and overdoses and stuff
lost
like that.
A couple that you're just like, man, but so,
is it something that continued to escalate for you? Was there a stopping point? What was the...
So, I started off smoking weed, and it just kept progressing, and it kept going into a deeper level of like escapism. So, you know, it was like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas was like that was like our mantra. Like, we're just going to go, and whatever we can do to escape, that's what we want to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't take Scarface's, advice on not getting high in your own supply, you know,
Right.
and so eventually the drugs took over. I mean, and eventually the weed lost its potency. So you're doing, you know, I found Oxycontin for me was an amazing escape, but then eventually it was like, you know, it was hard to get at some point. So, you know, heroin came in, and
Really?
and so full blown became a heroin addict. And, you know, and as the drugs began to progress, so did just the warping of my mind, the degeneration of my heart, and like the darkness. I mean, like, even in, you know, I grew up knowing enough about God that I knew that he wasn't pleased with what I was doing.
Right.
And so, but I didn't know anything about Satan. I didn't know anything about that dark world. But I was like, okay, if God's not approved with this, like the world thinks like, oh yeah, Satan's all about partying and like da 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 da. But like, you know, so I was like, oh yeah, like I will give my life to Satan in the same way that I gave my life to the Lord, you know, or Jesus when I was little, but that broke. Like that was that, you know, in that moment, I was like, well, if I can't please God, I'll please Satan. And I went all in.
What does that look like to go all in?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, you know, we would do the Santa Maria, we would, you know, Ouija board. Like, I mean, like we went into the occult. Like it was like hexes. I mean, like we would pray for mission, like drug deals and different things like before we'd go out.
So there was like an engagement where it's like, Satan, I'm praying to you for you to participate in these ways. And you're engaging occult devices from Ouija boards to seances to whatever it was. It's like
going to thin spaces and, you know, trying to invoke and find.
What's a thin space?
So like, you know, there's certain places where there's been practices and things where the spiritual realm is more present. So like, you know, you
accessibility
have certain,
to a supernatural,
you know, like,
experience.
Totally. So like, you know, haunted houses and stuff like that. Like there are places where things have been done and atrocities have been committed, or, you know, severe. And so you go to those places. Like there's a drawing to those places and trying to experience fear, like you just need, it's another form of adrenaline rush, but it was real. Like, I mean, like, I mean, yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole nother open door of stuff. But I mean, the reality was that every time we prayed to Satan, every time that we, you know, engaged in this demonic activity, it happened. Like
so we actually saw fulfillment.
We would see the fulfillment of it, but it was like it always came at a deeper level of bondage. I would use that word.
Like you're paying a price, an emotional.
I didn't know
at the price
at the time. Exactly. Like at the time, I wouldn't use that word as like I didn't think I was in bondage.
Right.
But the lessening of my soul.
Wow.
The lessening of my worth and value as just a human. Like was so degraded and demolished, and even the value of human life
not
was
only
so
giving no value to yourself, no value to other human beings.
Like I didn't, you know, I didn't care what other people thought or felt in pain, like and
you're happy potentially to inflict it
because it wasn't me being afflicted by it.
Right. So it got to be expressed outwardly instead of toward yourself.
Yeah. So, you know, eventually the drugs took over. And you know, we penthouse downtown San Diego to hotel.
Well, so you're living pretty wealthy.
We had money. We had
you're balling.
You know, it was great. We were just crushing it. And then, you know, all of a sudden,
the deeper the drugs and the messiness, now you're going from penthouse
burning bigger bridges. So now I have to go underground because again, the drugs just went to my mind. It was all about like, it was first it started off with like money, power, that fulfillment. Then it was just, I just need drugs. Like, and I'm doing whatever it takes. I mean, I stole from my parents, all my inheritance. Like, I mean, every single bridge relationship, it was just a progression of burning it down to the ground. Like, not even like, oh, we'll just put a little mat. It was like, I'm going to scorch earth, everything behind
going
me.
Nuclear on everything.
Of just the destruction. And I mean, it was the darkness that we were engaging in, and it just kept getting darker and darker and darker. I mean, buddies getting sent to prison for manslaughter, and like, I mean, just the whole gambit, and so, and then the fear of retaliation, and so it went from being known to, I need to be hidden, and I need to hide, and I need to go, and eventually went from penthouse, hotel, motel, couch to homeless.
Wow.
Like, and just the progression, couch surfing at people's houses, whoever would let me in, but I'd burn that bridge. I'd steal from them, or, like,
no way.
And
when you're talking homeless, you're talking about,
I'm talking about living in a box behind a bar for a year, panhandling on the side of the road. I'm 6'2". I weighed 132 pounds. My biceps were smaller than my wrist.
What?
Like, that's how, like, when I went into, eventually, I went into rehab, but they were like, you look like an Auschwitz victim. Like, that's how bad, like that's how emaciated and just complete, like, because I was, at that point, I was speedballing meth and heroin. And so doing the combination of the two, and just my mind couldn't handle it. Plus
absolute destruction of your mind.
Plus the spiritual dark side of just that negative energy force that is out there.
Wow.
It was totally like let's go.
Like, you were literally completely robbed of all of your humanity. It was just being absolutely stripped away till you were nothing.
Yep. And that was the lie that I was being fed.
Yeah.
That I am nothing, and everything is nothing. Like, and that was what the voices were all telling me, and inflicting upon me. And eventually you just get to a place where you're like, I believe that.
Yeah, like, sure.
I believe that I'm a piece of shit. I believe that I'm the worst human being. And so what's the point of life? And so I was sitting in that place, and I was like, I was so in a reprobate mind kind of thing, where it was like so desensitized to humanity, that it was like, I got to a place where I would, as I was sharing with you earlier, where it's like, I would sit and we'd do a drug deal in some parking lot, and then afterwards I would pick just random people and follow them home.
Interesting.
And just like, I could kill this person if I wanted to.
Wow. And just sitting thinking, like, the power that you had in that moment over this human life.
They have no idea what I'm doing.
Wow.
Like, the secrecy, and just that, just so desensitized to anything and everything around me. And so eventually I just got to this place where I was like, I'm done, but I'm going to commit suicide, but I'm going to do it in a way that I take out as many people as possible.
Interesting.
And so as I'm having this conversation and this thought process, and, sitting in my little box, just like, how do I do this? What am I going to do?
This, again, in your little box on the street.
Yeah.
And being like,
so
I'm
alone,
gonna make sure I'm not the only one that dies in this process, and thinking it out.
And I'm going to go out. I'm going to be known. I'm going to go out in this way. Like,
wow.
And so, and something, it was in that moment that a voice, a completely different voice from the voice that I was so familiar with, all the different voices, there was a new voice that came in, and it said, call your parents, tell them you're sorry, and say goodbye.
Interesting.
And little did I know, because it took me about 2 days to have that conversation.
Right.
But at the same time, there was a little old lady who was one of my mom's friends, who had been praying for me for 8 years. And she calls my dad, and she's like, hey, Michael's going to call you in a couple days.
What?
Like, if when he calls you, here's a free Christian rehab out in the middle of the desert that he can go to, and gave him the information. And again, you know, at this point, I burned every bridge. My parents, like, they were like, disown me, you know, like,
yeah, they're like, we had nothing to do
I
with
can't,
Michael,
you know,
because you can't.
it was
He's
again,
not safe.
yeah, and I wasn't ready. I hadn't hit that rock bottom. I hadn't hit like that place that was like, what do I do? You know, like I had gone to them before for rehab. So I've been in and out of programs.
There's no trust.
Exactly. You know, like
you guys.
I had literally burned every bridge, you know, and so in that regard, my dad, that's his story, you know, my mom, you know, like, but he listened, and it was a divine, you know, kind of thing. And 2 days later, I call him to say goodbye, and he convinces me, he talks to me and convinces me to meet up. And so I meet up with them. I'm like, whatever, like, I'll see my dad one last time before I go do this. And he ends up just like hijacking me kind of, and like doesn't even tell me like where we're going. And I'm so like drugged out of my mind, like I don't even know where we're going, but we're just talking and driving. And you know, he takes me out to the middle of freaking nowhere in the desert of El Centro, like even outside of El Centro, almost to Yuma, to Turning Point Ministries men's home. I'm gonna plug that one because it's free and they're great. But you know, it was just one of those where it was exactly what I needed. And he drops me off. I, you know, looking around, I'm like, I don't even know where I'm at. Like, but I was so destitute. I was so broken, so empty. I was like, I don't even care. Like, what's the point? You know, like I can do this another time. Like I'll see this through kind of thing. Like whatever, you know, I'm just at my rock bottom in that moment, you know? And, so I go and I kick the drugs, you know, they didn't have Suboxone, they didn't have methadone, they didn't have all the drug, like couldn't even smoke cigarettes. Like,
right. So this wasn't, they were like, here's a little extra drugs to get you off.
There was nothing.
They're like, you're going cold turkey and you're going to go through this, which could have been really severely painful on your body. Yeah.
Which it was.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about throwing up, crapping at the same time, but also feeling like you have enough anxious energy to run 100 miles, but no energy to even get up out of bed.
Wow.
Like, and then you're having all of these crazy, like, you know, lucid, very real, very dark dreams, like at night that were just so oppressive and so like, it was just crazy, like just the dreams that
like it's almost like the idea of like you're being liberated out of hell and you're going through all the like you're becoming conscious of the hell that you're inside of, and you're beginning to like pull out of it, kind of.
Yeah, you know, yeah, like, and it was just and even like I would even say hell fighting back.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I mean, I remember having a dream where there was a full-on demon that came in and he was like, you can't get out of here.
Wow.
Like, you are mine.
Wow.
Like, and because I had made a lot of agreements.
Right.
I made covenant with these powerful beings, and they had full dominion over me.
Wow.
And out of bitterness, out of brokenness, like that was what I went to, because that was safe in that, in a weird twisted way.
Power felt safe.
The power felt safe.
I felt so powerless in all the ways that I was violated, that I need power.
Exactly.
And I'll agree with this.
And it was just such a fickle facade, you know, where it was like, so like at the moment someone could just flick it and just the whole house of cards falls down, you know, totally. Like, and that's what it was. And so, you know, there's this pushback of the demonic. And so I remember it was like the 8th day or something, and they're like, I was starting to feel better and starting to get kind of like just feel better. And they're like, all right, it's time to go to church. I'm like, I don't want to go to church. Like, I want nothing to do with religion. I want nothing to do. And I was agnostic. I believe that there was a God, like a God, but he was completely not even involved in anyone's lives. Like, he's just some dude out in the middle of nowhere. Like, I don't even know. Like, there's so many wild things. But that was my thought. So I was like, I don't want this religion. I don't want anything. Like, well, you can leave. Well, I don't want to leave. Like, I kind of just kicked this. Like, I just went through hell. Like, I'm not leaving this right now. Like,
you can go.
You know, like I'm not in a box. Like, there's 3 meals a day if I want to. Like, I didn't even eat. Like, you know, but like I can at least, like, I have a roof over my head. I have a bed. It's like, you know, middle of summer. So it's like, you know, like I'm safe. Like, I don't want to leave.
Yeah,
like,
I got a pretty sweet setup.
I don't have to pay anything. Like, okay, great. Like,
I guess I could go to church,
right? Like, I'll go to church, and as I was sitting in church, they started like playing the music and stuff and worship and I just remember sitting there, and there was just this like videotape of just every attempt that I tried to save myself and get myself out of the environment that I was in. I mean, from going into rehabs, from, you know, cross, you know, addicting, you know, it's like, I won't do heroin, but I'll smoke weed, or I won't do this and I'll take this, or I won't do heroin, but I'll do Suboxone or methadone, and like nothing worked.
Right.
And it was just this deep sense of hopelessness.
Right. I can't save myself.
Exactly. And I was just like, well, I'm what do I do? You know?
Yeah.
And I just started weeping. I mean, like, ugly crying, snot, body shaking, weeping at just the hopelessness of life.
Wow. And
then, you know, this pastor came in and he just started preaching about the prodigal son in Luke 15 and just how this son squandered his inheritance, but the father still loved him.
Wow.
And the father, not like I mean, like, it was like, you're dead to me, Dad.
Yeah.
Like, that was what the son said, you know, like, you're dead to me. And God was just like, I love you.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just, again, even more crying. Like, I don't even know. Like, it was like so bad. Like, I bet other people in the room were like, what the fuck is going on? You know,
Totally.
like, what is happening to this dude? Because, like, you know, because when it came to the time for like the altar call, quote unquote, you know, like, or like, come give your life to Jesus thing, it was like, I realized that there's a loving father that, like, and during this whole hopelessness dialogue, and even hearing the scripture and hearing the story, it was like, could this be true?
Wow. Yeah.
That no matter how bad, you know, and even, no matter how bad and how dark and how broken I am, someone would still love me.
Yeah.
And in this place, like,
right.
Not even put together, not even, you know, like, just,
I'm shattered. There's nothing about me that's put together. I'm just off drugs a little bit.
Yeah. You know,
could
like,
you actually love me right here?
And even in my heart where I'm like, I want nothing to do with you.
And could you love me when I want nothing to do with you?
Yeah. You know, and I was like, all right. Like, and it was more of just this, like, I just want to be free. Yeah. Like, I just want freedom in my heart. I want freedom in my mind. I want freedom over my body. I want freedom, like, and it wasn't like, I wouldn't exactly say that was like what I could consciously, it was just like, I need help. As simple as it is like, I need help. Yeah. And I remember literally crawling up to the altar, like,
wow,
like down the stairs, like people are probably like, what the heck is this? Like, I couldn't even walk. I was that distraught, like,
shattered into a million
body.
pieces.
And again, just
crawling.
the demonic too, like, there's a war inside my mind. Everything inside of me was like, there's like two, like, me was like, I need help. And then all the other voices were like, get the fuck out of here. Yeah. You do not belong here. You need to get out of here. And it was so loud inside of my head, not outwardly. No one else could hear this audible, but it was
internal audible thing that is just,
and like,
screaming.
even like physically, like, manipulating my arms and my body, like where I'm just kind of like, almost like not convulsing, but just like, so, like, you know, like, you see like those scary movies where like you got the creature coming out and it's just like so like manipulated, like, you know, like, and it's like, that's what I felt like was going on in my body as I'm crawling up. And I remember they're like, you know, God bless these guys, like, they're like trying to like lead me through the sinner's prayer and stuff like that. I'm like, I can't even speak. Like, you're asking me to repeat after you. Like, I can't even do this. but I was like, and I just remember like my prayer of salvation, literally, it wasn't even, I didn't speak anything. It was literally just a thought of Jesus, help. And it was in that moment that it was in, like peace and you know, like you could imagine a hurricane style storm with earthquakes all in one body.
Yeah.
And then in that moment when I asked for help, it was just peace. Storm ceased.
Whoa.
Everything like stopped. Whoa. And I just remember sitting there just being like, what the hell just happened? Like almost like, where am I? Like,
yeah, no, it's
like literally, like I was like
contrasting difference.
Yeah. Like
it shakes you and you're like, what
was that?
Everything just got turned off.
And it was an encounter.
Yeah.
You know, like I went from logic to an encounter with something way greater, way powerful, way more beautiful and freeing. That was like, whoa, like, you know, and so that was kind of like my conversion story in a sense, you know, and it's all processed. Like I was like, oh yeah, I'm good. You know, like 3 months, I'm sober, I'm clean. I'm going to go back, tell all my drug dealing friends about Jesus. And you know,
well, what let me say this. I love that wasn't a logical thing that happened for you. It's an experiential. And like when there's an experience with a God that's actually alive and engaging. It's not just I'm here on Sunday going through the motion of following some religious duties, but I'm actually encountering an intimate relational experience that shatters and shakes all of the hell that I'm inside of and liberates me and brings a full sense of peace. And it's like, it becomes tangible. It's like, I couldn't make that up in my head.
And is willing and is willing to go into that spot,
into that darkness,
where every other person was running from my darkness.
Right.
No person stood there and was like, I'll sit in this with you.
Yeah.
Like I'll bring you out of this. And no person could.
Yeah. No, they couldn't.
They tried. Some people tried.
Failed miserably.
But they couldn't.
Yeah.
But he went in and was like, I'm here.
Yeah.
And I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
And it was very real, you know, and to meet something so loving, you know, so kind when I don't deserve it.
Yeah.
When I've done everything but destroy everything, people, lives, you know, and it was just one of those where it's like, wow, this is real, you know? And so I wanted to do whatever I could, you know, like I'm the type of guy that I'm like, hey, I know this bomb of foodie. So I'm like, you want to know some bomb restaurants? I know the bomb restaurants. Like, let me tell you about all the bomb restaurants. And I've tasted and seen something that's freaking way better than any food that I've ever tasted.
Yeah.
And I want to tell as many people about this food that I've like this thing that is so amazingly beautiful and so amazingly free. Like, and I was like, I need to go tell my friends because they're in what I was in.
Right. So you're like, I want to go back. I want to leave rehab. I want to go jump in and tell everybody about this experience.
Yep. And all the directors like, don't do that. Like, you're not ready.
They're like, no, stay here.
I'm like, yeah, screw you. And I'm going. And so I left. And not even a week later, I'm at one of my buddy's house and back doing heroin.
Wow.
Trying to tell them about Jesus. And they're like, yeah, that's cool. It's great. Glad you had that experience, you know, and, you know, at that time.
And would you like some heroin?
Yeah. You know, like it was just like, it actually started with smoking weed, you know, because it again, weed at that point had just become legal in California.
Okay.
So it was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, it's legal, you know, like, but I didn't realize like in that moment where I opened up my, like I lowered my protection or like my guard. I guess you could say, like I lowered my guard in the euphoria of smoking weed, And then that opened up the door for like, hey, well, I've already screwed up, you know, like, or I've already, you know, like I already know that I'm not doing the right thing.
Right. So I might as well
go. And so, and so I went full on back into it because my understanding of the gospel, my understanding was how my dad treated life was, I will give you your one get out of jail free card, but if you screw up again, you're going to go, like, you got to figure it out.
So at that point, the minute you do that, you're like, all right, I blew my get out of jail free card. Yep. So I'm back into this hope. You're believing this lie about the nature of God and his interaction with you. Yep. And you go ahead and go down that journey.
Yep. And so for 6 months, I had one foot in where I was like, I've tasted and seen freedom and like pure like life, but I don't know how to get there. So I got to figure it out as an orphan. I got to figure it out on myself again, like back into that same mentality and like, okay, I guess, you know, and it was New Year's Eve and, you know, I was like, I'm going to make it my New Year's resolution. I'm going to quit, you know, and first time ever. And, you know, I'd share with you about all the times that I've been caught at borders with drugs and giving it back and just, you know, like just these really crazy scenarios and situations.
Real quick, just give one example of that situation.
Yeah. So one time we were coming through a border checkpoint and a full on drug dogs hit. And I had like over, I think it was like 2,000 Oxycontin pills, a bunch of weed, my bong and stuff. Drug dogs hit. They found the pills, found the weed, like all this stuff, and pulled me in, you know, pulled me into secondary. And he's like, he had asked me multiple times, do you have anything in your car? No. And he's like, you lied to me 4 different times. Like, I should throw the book at you. I don't know why I'm doing this, but here's your drugs. Here's your, like, get in your car and you need to leave. And like, as I'm like, what? Like, and he's, even as I'm driving away, he's like, hold on. I'm like, oh, here it is. Like, you know, like I'm getting locked up. Like, and he's like, hey, you got a cracked rim on your back tire. You should get that fixed. Cause if that busts and you're going to get in a car crash, like, and you might die. See you later.
Like, this is bananas. Like, that is not, that's completely unheard of. It wasn't even like, I'm going to keep your drugs now, get out of here. It's take them all and go.
Yep.
And so you have multiple situations where this happened just like that, whether it was border or it was driving down the road, full on, they see your drugs, they see everything that you've got, and they're like, I don't know why, but I'm letting you go, get out of here.
That was always the tagline at the very end. I don't know why I'm doing this, but get out of here and go. Even one of them was like, you should probably stop doing this and like drink alcohol or something. Like, he was like, you should probably stop doing heroin and like, go,
that's complete bananas.
It was unreal. Like, I mean, we were all like, what just happened? You know, like,
how am I getting away with this right now?
And in a sense, it created again more of that. I'm inferior. I am untouchable.
Right.
And, you know, whether it was God or whether it was demonic, I don't know. But like, either way, that was what happened, you know, like,
and then fast forward to like, you've relapsed after you've said, hey, I actually want out of this, God. Yep. So you're at this relapse point at New Year's Eve. And I get a call from a buddy and he was like, hey, can you like, do you got a gram of heroin that you can give me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I got it, you know? And so, you know, I go meet up with them. A gram of heroin.
Real little, like we had 50, like, you know, like we had so much stuff in the house. And like, I'd literally take 7 steps out of the house and there's like 9 cop cars, the whole block was completely surrounded. And they arrest me for that 1 gram of heroin with possession with intent to sell because the guy got caught, set us up. Eventually our whole, like, they were watching our whole crew, like, and other guys, like, there's 9 of us that all were arrested that night.
Wow.
With felony possession of narcotics and so with intent to sell. And so so I spent, because it was New Year's Eve, I don't even know why, but there was like, I had to wait in jail county for like 3 weeks. Like, I don't even know why it took so long, but I think it was just God doing something, you know, and, you know, for 5 of those days I was in lockdown because there's riots going on, and you know, I'd gotten a Bible and all this kind of stuff. And so I was just reading Bible, and God was just like, and guys are getting beat up. Guys are, you know, like in my, like, it was just like crazy. And God was just like,
you're watching this violence unfold. You're sitting here in your cell with a Bible.
Yeah.
And you're trying to
just figure out, like, I'm just like, what am I doing? You know, like, how do I get out of here? And again, just then that voice, you know, was just like, hey, if you want out and you really want out, come follow me.
Yeah.
Like, and really give your life to me. But if you choose to continue down the path, this is where you're going to be. Like, this is where it will end. Like, and so very much I was just like, okay. Like, and I remember asking my public defender, like, hey, you know, is there any way that I could go to, they wanted to give me a year in county. But I was like, hey, is there any way that I can go to rehab instead? And the judge actually wanted to throw the book at me in our group. I don't know why, but she just looked at and was like, I wasn't going to do this. I don't normally do this. Like, but I'm gonna grant you can go out back to the men's home but if you mess up, you're going to get it.
You're
like,
done for. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it won't be a year. Like, it'll be more, like, it was like, she was like very stern. And so I was like, okay, yep. So I went and I just made it, you know, it's just like, okay, I'm gonna follow you, you know, and completed my year, went back to the judge, and, you know, it was just that, like, she was like, you're not the same person.
So a year later, you're sitting before the judge and she's going, who are you? This is not the person I saw a year ago.
And she was just like, I have thousands of guys that were just like you. And I can tell that there's something different about you. That you are transformed in a sense, like you are a different person. How did you do it? I was like, Jesus literally, and I got to like preach, you know, like, again, should share the goodness of God, you know, like the relationship and the encounter of what happened. And, you know, and she's like, again, I don't do that. She's like, I've never done this before, but I am dismissing your case. I'm dismissing your felonies.
Wow.
You are free to go. Like, she was like,
that's crazy.
She was like, do you have money to pay your fines? I was like, I just got I got nothing. Like, I don't have anything. Like, I'm at your mercy. Like, I was like, Your Honor, I'm at your mercy. And she's like, okay, everything's dismissed. Like, I can own a gun now. I can get global entry. Like, I have it all. Like, you know, like, and
that is a radical. That's radical grace.
Radical, scandalous.
Right. Yeah. Scandalous grace. Yeah.
Scandalous grace that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And then that's just getting out.
Yeah.
After that, I go, you know, I'm scared to go back to San Diego. So I was like, I spent 4 more months in the rehab because I was like, I don't want to go back. I don't have a plan.
I also love that this time you're like, no, I'm going to take my time.
Yeah.
With this.
I'm like, I'm not going back. I'm staying. Like, you know, I don't have any. And so I found out about this, you know, discipleship school, ministry school or whatever, where I could learn more about how to walk my faith out. And so I signed up, and I didn't have any money for the tuition, but my grandparents, like, they were like, hey, we didn't tell you because we didn't want you to squander it on drugs. Like, but you have, like, you know, $20,000 or whatever in college funds, and you can use it for school, like this school, if you want to.
Wow.
And so
come on.
Was able to, you know, pay for my tuition to go to the school. And it was there that I just found community. I found, like, real community, like people that are going to tell you hard things, and people that are going to, you know, like, just speak life.
Right. Like, they're lovingly not going to bullshit you.
Exactly. You know, like, in their own dysfunctional way, you know, like, sure. You know, because it's church, like,
yeah, totally.
But, you know, and so in that, like, I just found life and true friendship and true people. I met my wife there, and and after that it was like, okay, well, I want to pursue this girl. I'm living in my parents' house. I don't have a job. I'm skating all the time. Like I'm evangelizing. I'm telling people about Jesus. I'm talking about my faith and just with anybody and everybody that'll listen. Cause I'm like, I tasted something good. Like you guys need to know about how good this is. And so I was like, I need to get a job. Like my wife, the girl that I was pursuing, my wife was like, you need to get a job. I'm tired of picking you up. Like, and she's like, I can't
run around on your skateboard.
Right. She like college degree, like she was like the good girl, like, and she's like, you got to get your shit together. Like if you want to get married to me, like, again, that bar, like here's the bar. Like, and I believe that you can reach and attain that bar. So I was like, okay, great. Well, and I was still in shock about my felonies and stuff like that. Like, I was like, well, how real is this? Like, and so I was like, well, who's going to hire someone who has no work experience? Like, someone who's in and out of jail, kind of thing. And so I was like, all right, like I'm going to go work at McDonald's. Like it's a job, it's an income, like,
right. Totally.
So I just started working at McDonald's. And
which I can imagine was a humbling experience.
So I mean, like I remember seeing friends from high school come in, and this is I'm 22 working at McDonald's.
I can't believe, okay, by the way, all of this happened, like everything that you're talking about that happened, and you're only 22. This is like the life that you live feels like, oh, he was like in his late 20s, early 30s.
No, it was from like 14 to 22. That was the lot, that was
bananas. So, so you remember friends coming in
and just ducking behind the counter, like I gotta go get ketchup, and just like, or they'd be like, Dots, or like, like, dude, what are you doing? Like you're alive, like, like kind of thing, like, oh well, it makes sense. You're working at McDonald's, like totally. Kind of thing. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so humiliating. Yeah, like, but I just was like, all right, this is where I'm at, and I just served people, but it was humbling. And then, all of a sudden, my uncle gives me a call, and he was like, hey, I've been, kind of being like a handyman, driving Miss Daisy for this old lady, in northern San Diego. And I'm battling some cancer stuff. Like, wow. Would you mind just stepping in? It'll be double the pay. She'll pay you cash. Like, I'm like, shoot, no taxes. Like, yeah, like cash. Like, all right, like sick. And so I was like, yeah, great. I put in my 2 weeks, like, at McDonald's, and then went and started working for this lady, and found out she's an 87-year-old atheist. She has no family, no friends. The only people that were around that were part of her life was my uncle and her dogs. Like, and my uncle ended up not recovering from the cancer, and he passed away. Wow. And so I stepped in as, this lady's kind of like just clipping, like I just drive her to thing. My first assignment was going out to Palm Desert and exhuming her like it was like 6 dogs out of like a pet cemetery. What? And bringing them back to her property so that she could make sure that they were having like a proper cemetery. Like she but those were her family. Like she had no family. Like, right. Like, but that was my first thing. And I was just like, I don't know, what did I even get myself into? And this lady, she was like, I mean, she was through the Depression, 87. So she lived like through the World Wars, like she was not, no nonsense, wirely, like old lady. Like at 87, she was driving herself to the gym, like, but then her eyesight started going bad. And then, 6 months in, she has a stroke and loses half of like usage of half of her body. And so I step in as full-time caregiver. I had no experience. Old people freaked me out before, like it was like drool and stuff, like poop and like that. It was just freaked me out. Like, but I was like, you have nobody. Like, so I'm going to step in and I'm going to serve you to the best of my ability. And she even got to the point of hospice, where it was like she weighed 80 pounds. Like I was like, you're going to die. Like, I was like, you need like I tried to tell her about Jesus. She's like, I don't want your effing Jesus, you know, like,
Totally.
like, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, and I mean, she was just the meanest old lady, but in this, she was humbled. And she finally got to a place where I was like, hey, I just need you to say a prayer. And like, I thought she was going to die, you know? And so she says this prayer. I'm like, great. I'll leave that up between you and God. I don't know what this is, Hail Mary kind of prayer, like thing, you know, like I don't know the theology behind that, but I was like, great. At least I did my part. Like, you know, I got you to say this prayer. Like, and literally 2 weeks go by and she still hasn't died. And one day she calls me and she's up walking around.
No.
Full healing in her body. She lives another 2 years.
No.
And I get to see what that prayer did in her heart.
No
and
way.
I got to see the transformation of a very, very hard heart become soft. And even the pursuit, like, because I was at ministry school at the time, I was serving in this discipleship school. So I brought in all my buddies to take care of this lady. So we had 7 paid staff members. This lady is very wealthy, lived in one of the most wealthiest neighborhoods in San Diego, let alone the world.
Yeah.
Like, and she was just surrounded by believers. And I was like even not just like people that I brought in, but like it would be even like the HVAC technician or the pest control guy, like having conversations with them. And he's like, yeah, I'm a pastor down, you know, like I'm just like
randomly these technicians,
people you know, to help landscapers. Like, and it was like the extent that a loving father would go to win back one of his kids.
Yeah.
Or like, and someone again who wanted nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it was just, you know, to see the love of God for this woman, you know, and I'm like, and when she passed away, I was like, oh my gosh, I tell the Lord all the time, I'm like, God, would you let Belina like give me the tour? Cause I just want to see her like, and just the weeping of joy. Cause she had no idea. I mean, we all have no idea what it's going to be like when we see him face to face.
Yeah.
And just all of our religious, even the most theologically sound person is just going to be like, I was so
wrong.
Like, you know, like you are so much amazing.
More amazing than I ever could imagine. Yeah.
You know, and so she ends up passing away and she leaves all of her inheritance, like millions upon millions of dollars, to her dogs. yes, people, her dogs.
To the dogs.
Not to us, to her dogs, to her family. And there's benefaction, like people that, you know, there's beneficiaries, different organizations that all animals, because she loved animals.
Yeah.
And you know, I didn't want to touch her money. I was like,
right, you're there just to love her.
Exactly. I was like, money's, I don't care. I could care less. Like, but she left my wife and I as caretakers of the dogs. And so we've been living in this house for the last 8 years, like literally
taking care of the dogs,
just taking care of these dogs,
life.
You know,
like she's like, I want my dogs taken care of, but I also want to bless you.
Yeah.
And you can take care as long as they live.
Yeah. And even right before she died, so my wife, when we moved in, you know, she was 9 months pregnant, and my oldest daughter was the first baby that this woman ever held.
Are you serious?
In 90 years.
No kidding.
First baby that she ever held, and just, you know, and we, you know. We gave her, my daughter, like her last, like middle name was Belina Lee. And so it's Maddie Lee, like, you know, to honor her. Where I was like, hey, you're part of this family. Like, we have adopted you in this family. And like,
what did you see that do to her heart, by the way? Like, I'm just really like, I'm just curious. I know we got to wrap up here soon, but
it was a softening. You know, she's still rough. Like, she's still, you know, but like what the biggest thing was, like, so before she would rip into people, and like then she would like after, like she was like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. You know, like there was just that, like, that was mean. Before it was like, F you, I don't care. You know, like I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say and you just deal with it, you know, like, and leave people in tears. Like I'm no, yeah. But like, you know, and even with my daughter, like she didn't even, like she just like, it literally, like when my daughter came in, she basically was waiting, and then it was like maybe 3 weeks later she died.
After your daughter was born, because she was basically wanting to be around for that birth, and then passed away.
That was it.
Ugh.
Like literally, like, and basically 2 of those weeks she was just in like a comatose kind of state. Like, so it was like literally she just like was holding on to life just to meet my daughter, and like, you know, and she had no idea how to hold a baby, like, or anything. Like she's like, I'm like, oh, don't do that, please. Like, like she gave my daughter a whooping cough, and like, you know, like, you know, but it was just like one of those where it's just like, this is life. This is religion. Yeah. You know, and the Bible says that, like, pure worship, pure religion is taking care of widows and orphans. Yeah. This woman was a widow and she was an orphan. Yeah. And that's worship, you know, like that's church. Yeah. You know, going after the one. Yeah. Leaving the 99 to go after the one. Yeah. You know, and like seeing her and being like, you're beautiful. You're broken, but you're beautiful. Yeah. You know,
I see you beyond the messiness of your life.
And I accept you. Yeah. I love you. And you can yell at me. You can tell me all, like, you know, and I'm just going to love you that much more, you know? Yeah. And so, you know, like I said, we've been in this place for, you know, 8 years, and people always ask us like, what are you going to do? Like, you know, and I'm like, I don't know. But I got here by trusting in the Lord. Yeah. And
I came out of completely nothing. My life was in complete shambles. And I just said, yeah, Dad, I'm in this process with you. I'm going to trust you. And I found myself at this place. Yeah. And I just know he's with me. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what the next thing is. I know that I just get to see his goodness along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And even out of it, like, because we live in that neighborhood, I built a business of estate management and, you know, taking care of rich people's houses, like maintaining them, and, you know, like, and that's what I like. Now I'm around elite people, like billionaires, like, you know, like, and it's like, what the heck? Like, God, how would you take this freaking knucklehead, you know, like, and completely like bring me into a whole different world.
Oh yeah. From living in a box to living with billionaires. Like,
right. Like, exactly. You know, where you're just like, wow, you know, like, and but actually seeing those billionaires as actually people. Yeah. Not just all those dollar signs, you know, like they're not an ATM. Yeah. They're not like, they're genuine people that are just as human as any, like their shit smells like, you know, like just like mine, you know, and but to be in that place where it's just like, man, like, you know, and I tell people, you know, as I was sharing with you, like, I'm not, and for anyone listening, like, I'm not anything special. I am special, but I'm not, my story isn't, it's abnormal, but it's not like he can't do anything for anybody else.
It's not like it's reserved for you.
Exactly.
Like, there is a radical love and interactivity from Papa that is open, like, for every person. Yeah. That he's like, no, I want to encounter you all. It all looks different for each and every individual, but there is a unique, beautiful, powerful story that God wants to write with each and every one of our lives. If we're willing to be like, yeah, Dad, I welcome you to participate with me in this story.
Yeah. And like, still dig in. Like, I'm not fully healed. I'm not like, I haven't arrived. Like, no, you know, like I'm still like, even like, like he had me crying, like, you know, like processing through inner like just more stuff, you know, and it's just like, just pulling back the layers and like finding freedom in every aspect. And sometimes that's freedom in the brokenness. Yeah. Like to accept, like, it's broken. Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like,
Yeah.
and there's beauty in that mess. And you can make, you know, he's like, I will bind up the brokenhearted.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I'll turn beauty out of ashes.
Yeah.
And like, it's one of those where I'm like, dang, and I've seen that fulfilled.
Come on.
You know, and
I love that. And again, your story is one of those. It's like, you know, there was a conversation that God had with you in prison where it's like, this is where you can have this. You can choose this. We have an option to choose as much destruction, as much darkness, as much loneliness as we want. But on the other side, there's a dad that's go, but I really have something really unique to offer you. I really have a hope and a life and a goodness. And I think that there's a lot of people that participate in religion like you did. Like you were in religion as a child. That was religion. Yep. That wasn't a relational experience, but that was a religion thing that you were participating in, right?
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of emptiness and deadness to it. And so a lot of people go, I can't imagine a God like what you're talking about, because they've experienced the emptiness aspect of just religion versus that intimate encounter relationship where it's like, no, I want to know you personally. I want to have an interactivity with you. Oh, you do actually crawl into the midst of our messiness.
Yeah.
You are available. You are real. You are tangible in ways that my mind doesn't know how to comprehend, but my spirit, my emotions experience you. And I watch you tangibly, externally in situations, repair, restore, and redeem them. And I love your story. It's such an example of God repairing, restoring, and redeeming everything that got shattered and broken. Like you said, I haven't arrived at some locale of perfection or anything. It's like, there's so much to be revealed about the truth of who I am. There's so many places where his love is doing a work and healing me, but he is perfectly capable of just stepping into anyone's story that all they can say is like, Jesus, please help. Mm-hmm. That's all I got in me, is in my mind to say, just please help. There's a lot of people they'll listen to this story and they may be in a hopeless circumstance. And I think it's the moment to take away from it. Like, no, this doesn't have to be hopeless. Like, I don't know the fullness of my story yet. Mm-hmm. And it only feels like hopelessness feels compounded when we try and resolve we try and write the entire story in our head before it's happened. So if I try and make up the story in my head of what my future holds for me, I can compound hopelessness. Yep. But if I suspend all of like my thoughts of how I want to project my future and just go, Dad, I'm just going to be here in this moment. I need you to encounter me in this moment. I'm going to believe that there's a possibility that you're in my future just the way that you were in Mike's future.
Yeah.
That's where hope begins to abound inside of our hearts. And we go, okay, I can find hope for today. I can find the grace that is for this moment right now, the love that's available in this moment. And I'm going to be able to look back one day and see the story that love wrote with my life as I just kept saying yes to the grace of the moment in front of me.
Yeah.
Man, I so appreciate you being willing to share this story.
I'm grateful for the opportunity to share it.
Yeah, man. I know there's so many more details that I have to pick out of your brain that you can't share publicly right now, or just didn't have enough time. But I want to hear all of it.
I don't want to
Connected Life people, I love you all. I thank you for taking time to listen to Mike's story with us here today. Mike, is there? Yeah, I don't know that there's any way that you want to be contacted or anything like that. Or is there any last thing you want to say? I don't know. Sometimes people are like, hey, come find out about me here. Maybe you're just like, nah, I don't. Here's my story. And this is the last thing I have to say to you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That is my story. You know, the last thing, I just had this thought as you're sharing, all of that, because I know that you're sharing how you have a lot of people that aren't Christians. That listen to this podcast, and and I just say that, like, because a lot of times the hindrance for those people is they've been wounded by the church.
Yeah.
And on behalf of our family, to you, like, we're sorry.
Yeah.
Like, it's a genuine. The church there's been a lot of things that have been totally just demoralizing people in the name of Jesus.
Yeah.
And wounds have been affected. I mean, even, and all throughout history, like, the church has done great damage in the world in the name of Jesus. And
Yeah.
that's not our God. That is not the Father. That is not his heart. And I just want to encourage you to trust, or to try, especially if you're in a place of hopelessness. What else do you have to lose? Because there is something so beautiful and so sweet and so freeing and getting outside of religion and finding that relationship with the Father and finding community within a people of that, so just want to encourage you guys in that. Like, I just had that thought.
That's really good, Mike.
So, and just apologize, because I may not have affected you, but I know my family members have.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for that, And so, I just hope that you can find peace within yourself. And so, yeah, that's it.
Thanks for sharing that. I love you, Mike. It's good spending time with you. And to everybody out there, I'm going away. I'm going to go have fun. I'm going to go smoke a cigar. Goodbye.